What's good, everyone? It's your boy Natu with another video for the channel. Welcome back to the DMV Sports Zone. And tonight, I got a long-awaited interview with the Podfather, Kyle Ronick, a great podcaster out here in the Watson football team community, really in podcast community as a whole, putting out some great content as always. And I know you got an episode that is likely dropping very soon. You're going to be recording right after this stream. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us tonight. And first and foremost, as I like to do with every single guest that I have on this channel, can you first please introduce yourself?
Of course, and that introduction was way too much for me, Natty. I really do appreciate you extending the invite and having me come on here to talk some football, dude, because, you know, you and I are one of the same. We just love to do it. But my name's Kyle. I was born and bred in the DMV, was born in Baltimore, grew up here in Montgomery County. I'm a DC native. I'm an all-Washington fan. You know, people my age, I love to say, you know, I grew up disappointed on Sundays. And the one thing I've seen is people my age, because of those losing seasons and everything like that, there isn't that many people like me, my age, that are fans of all four DC teams. And we are a rare breed, Natty.
Yeah. No, definitely respect for you for that. Like, that you guys, your generation, like, just slightly older than mine, like, I think about your guys' generation the most when it comes to the Boston football team finally turning things around here in DC and ultimately, hopefully getting to the promised land very soon. But before getting to all that, I want to first ask your thoughts about the Ryan Kerrigan news, actually, that broke a little while earlier, and that was him ultimately saying that he's no longer going to be a member of the Boston football team on Instagram, and saying that he's actually joining our nemesis, the Philadelphia Eagles. And I was wondering if you could give your short thoughts on that.
Yeah, it sucks, you know, because last year in that playoff game against the Buccaneers, one of the things that I saw was that the backups to Chase Young and Montez Sweat, now I don't mean to disrespect Ryan Kerrigan, they weren't getting the job done. They were getting destroyed. So I thought bringing back Ryan would make a lot of sense, because you could have that stable. You know he's going to come in and give you the minutes. But obviously they told him in January that they weren't going to re-sign him. Am I blown about that? Of course. But this was inevitable. Just like anybody out there. You start a Madden franchise, you progress 2 or 3 seasons in the future, this decision is coming. It's going to happen sooner or later. And look, the reality is this was the time to do it. Ryan can go and get his starting reps. Unfortunately, it's with the Philadelphia Eagles. I know it has mixed reactions with everybody, but a guy on Twitter, Ash Burning, broke it down really well for me, because I was upset at first when I heard it, just like everyone else. It's like the whole Bryce Harper situation all over again. Just out of spite, you want to go to our division rival, you know, and stick it in our face. But he said, you know, what if he went to Philly so he wouldn't have to move his family? And that makes a lot of sense. You know, he'd only have to go and have a condo in Philly. His family could stay here. His kids could go to the same school and everything. And he could travel back and forth throughout the season. If it's only for 1 or 2 seasons, that makes sense. Now, that being said, I love Ryan. I love everything that he did. He's a very underrated player, all-time leading sack leader in Washington history. But for 2 games a season, I hope he gets his face mushed into the dirt.
Agreed. For a long time, my Ryan Kerrigan jersey was the only Redskins at the time Boston football team jersey that I owned for a long time, and it just goes to show how much of a stabilizing presence he was on this team, and he was the one constant amidst all the turmoil, the chaos that surrounded it. So I'm thankful for his time here, and I'm not like a lot of people out there who were really angry that he signed with the Eagles. I also understood that maybe this was the only team that wanted to sign him after the draft, right? That gave him the opportunity, and he has a pretty good opportunity in Philly to have some good games. And, you know, the Eagles defensive line is pretty loaded right now, but they are aging, so Ryan Kerrigan could step up and potentially give them some reps like he did last year in DC. But hopefully, you know, great future out there for Ryan Kerrigan, other than when he plays the Washington football team, of course.
Yeah, and it's terrible because all of the losing seasons and bad and crazy circumstances that surrounded the Washington football team throughout the year since he's been drafted here. And then this team is finally on the up. You know, they make the playoffs, and they could possibly come back and win the division 2 times in a row. First time it's happened in 16 years. They have the ability to do that. And he's not going to be on the team. And that's what like kills me about it, because you'd want a guy like that who has done all the right things, hasn't been spiteful with the team, hasn't gone behind their backs, leaked stuff out about players, you know, had animosity with other players, caused fights and rifts. He just went to work, did his thing, showed up on Sundays, rarely missed games, and now he's not going to be with us to see the promised land. And that's probably the hardest thing for everybody. And that's one of the hardest things for me, honestly. But look, it's a business. These things happen. There's no reason to be all sentimental about it because they're not feeling that way. So, I mean, best of luck to you, Ryan.
For sure. And I even mentioned that on the Instagram post that I put up on the DMV Sports Zone channel a couple of days ago. And yeah, the fact that, he's not really going to see this whole shit turn around, right? Like he saw glimpses of that last year with the NFC East Division Championship, but he's not really going to see this team really be something to be proud of for years on out, really. So that's really unfortunate. But again, I hope he has a great future, but just not when he's playing us. But moving on to the news that actually broke today, and I see Aria commented about the stadium. We'll get to that a little bit later. But with the news that broke earlier today, Morgan Moses, Jerron Christian being released by the Washington football team, can you give the good people out there watching your thoughts on the moves and if you were surprised by any of them?
Jerron Christian, I wasn't very surprised with. We kind of saw that last year with him getting notched down on the depth chart. Cornelius Lucas came in and did really well and took away his reps there. But with Morgan, that was a huge blow because, we had Morgan Moses on. He was our first player interview that we had in June of last year. And he was a great guy. We got him mid-workout. I mean, he's in his gym, in his house, all sweaty and everything. We're interviewing him. He's saying that he's working his butt off this year, more than any other year, to get in shape and to make sure his body's ready to go. And I don't think there's any misconception here. That's the reason why he had a great year. He really did so much in the offseason to get back. And I know a lot of people have said and speculated that possibly he was the one that said, oh, this is the way we used to do things. In my personal opinion, I don't think that was Morgan. From what I've talked with Morgan, he embraced the challenge. He embraced the new regime. He was all about it. He was trying to help guys like Dwayne Haskins get their head on a swivel. I really don't think that was Mo. I think that this comes down to something being behind the scenes that hasn't been released yet, that will come out and make more sense as to why they felt the way that they did. Because coming off the best year of his career, he's not getting paid all that much money. But from my viewpoint, the way I'm looking at it, it looks as though they sat there and said, we might not get the same Morgan. So let's go ahead and let's save some money. Let's save $7.7 million and let's move on from Mo. We already drafted all these allocations. It makes sense. Let's move on and let's start going towards the future. It sucks. Just like Kerrigan, I wish Morgan could be a part of this because he was that leader last year. He did really well. But look, man, these things happen. It does. And it's unfortunate. I know I personally love Mo, but I knew that we weren't going to get anything in return. Whenever they say we're letting you go out for a trade, that typically means that nobody is calling them about trading for you. So yeah, you could go out and ask, but there's not really much to come of it. Knew he was going to get released. It's unfortunate. I know we're not getting anything in return, but the reality is it's better to do it this way and then having it linger around trying to trade him or something like that. You know what I mean? So let's just cut the cord and let's move on.
No more Pancake Mo here in DC.
Unfortunate, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I first heard the news that they were thinking about, they allowed Morgan Moses to seek trade offers and ultimately they released him today, I was kind of surprised. I thought, like you said, he had arguably his best year here in DC last year. He was really good. A lot of the times in previous years that we complained about Morgan Moses, it was because of the false starts, it was because of the holding penalties, but he kept he kept those pretty limited last year, at least relative to previous years. So he had a really good year. But at the same time, I also understand the thinking. He is 30 years old. He just turned 30 years old. Might as well release him now, right? Save some money, like you said, and look towards the future. We have Samuel Cosby, who I think, by all accounts, is probably going to be a starter come week one, if not relatively soon. You don't release Christian and Moses if you don't think so at this point, in my opinion. But yeah, a little head scratching, I'm not going to lie. But the Christian move, I mean, it's about time. It is about time.
Yeah, and the thing is, when we interviewed Morgan, I said to him, you caught a lot of flack from the fan base, about with your play over the years. But the fact is you've been Mr. Consistent. You've showed up every single game. You've played in every game going back to 2016. And he said, I really appreciate you acknowledging that. And that's the one thing that fan base has to understand. With like the safety position and with O-line, you don't hear their name called unless it's a bad thing. So like when you're seeing their name called, it's like, oh my God, again. But it's like, how many plays did you not hear their name called? Does that go as a positive in their arsenal, you could say? So with Mo, I felt like he did catch too much flack. The guy, he was one of the only guys who would stay injured and still play while the offensive line was in shambles. We had nobody else, and he would fight through it every single season. He deserves that respect. Unfortunately, it is the way it is. It just sucks, man. It's about time. I'm sorry he came off the best year of his career. But look, man, it's I think I would be worried about if Cosme is the starter week 1. Just from the film that I've watched with his footwork, he still has a little bit of ways to go. But obviously, he's 6'7", 309 pounds. The guy's an athletic freak. He can do a lot. The whole thing is, can Mike Matzko get the most out of Sam Cosme in 2 to 3 months and get him ready to start at right tackle? And I'm not 100% sure. I think right now it should be Lucas at right tackle with Sadiq Charles at left guard and Leno starting at left tackle. But we'll see how it plays out. We don't know how they're going to look.
Okay. I mean, I was just about to ask you, how do you see the 5 starters playing out on the offensive line and potentially their backups? I know for me, I think Leno is going to be the starting left tackle come week 1. You also got a guy like Eric Flowers the team brought along, who traded for this year, or I'm sorry, they brought in the offseason. And you also have a Wes Schweitzer, who also had a pretty good year last year, pretty underrated year as well.
Yep.
Sadiq Charles, what are we going to get out of him? Chase Roulier, obviously, I think is cemented at the center spot. Vernon Sheriff at right guard, but for how long? And then Samuel Cosme. I mean, what are your thoughts on the whole group?
I love the group with Morgan Moses in the building. Now with Morgan out, I'm kind of worried about depth for a 17-game season, the first one ever, because depth is going to be very key this year. It's going to be who is the most healthy at the end of the season. Now, that being said, when I watched Sadiq Charles's film before the draft even happened, I was adamant in saying this. I think he's better as a guard. Just based off how he moved, how he was blocking, he fit better as a guard. He's strong. He's very quick. He can get around the edge. He's athletic. But sometimes he struggled being able to come back and match guys' speed on the edge. At guard, he can do that. And I think that with the videos that I've seen with him going against Jonathan Allen in practice, I think Sadiq Charles has that left guard spot. But Schweitzer does start out at left guard at training camp because he earned that. He did well last year. He played well. And so I think he does get the nod. But I really, truly believe Sadiq Charles is that good, that he'll take that job at left guard. They'll have Eric Flowers backing him up. He didn't grade all that well by Pro Football Focus last year with Miami. Mm-hmm. And then at right guard, you have Brendan Sheriff and Schweitzer behind him. Then you have Leno at left tackle. I've said this many, many times. I feel like this staff likes Lucas at left tackle, but they love him as a swing tackle backup at either left or right. I feel like that's where they really feel confident with Lucas, and that's why they went out and got Leno. That's why they drafted Cosme to play at right tackle in case. If not, Lucas can step right in, start there, and maybe Cosme takes over like Lucas did last year.
I mean, that swing tackle take, saying it for so long, you hit the nail on its head. I think the perfect spot for Cornelius Lucas would be for that Ty Nsekhe type role, right, that we saw for so many years in the mid 2010s with Jay Gruden as the head coach here in DC. And but yeah, I'm excited to see what Charles Leno has. I'm in Chicago right now for school, and a lot of Bears fans did not like what they saw out of Leno last year, but they also said the same thing about Cornelius Lucas. So I'm hoping that the good fortune strike twice for us after getting a Bears tackle that ultimately was no longer on the Chicago team, and ultimately we acquired. So hopefully it works out there. But I am kind of confident in this group right now, but I just think they have to see something in Samuel Cosme, right? In order to release Morgan Moses. Maybe there's something behind closed doors, but at the same time, I mean, they got a guy in Eric Flowers who's a guard at this point in his career. They got a guy in Wes Schweitzer. They got a guy, Vernon Sheriff. Charles Leno was one of the tackles that they signed. But I feel like if Sadiq Charles is not going to start at tackle, then, I mean, Cosme has to be the guy, right?
Yeah, he has to be. And I know I said this on our last pod. You can't really gauge if a player is ready for the pros based on rookie minicamp. Now, after they had drafted Cosme, if they told Cosme, I want you to work on the A, B, and C, and then a rookie minicamp, he came out and showed that he worked on those and was actually better in that capacity, then yeah, that would make a lot of sense why they pulled that trigger. In my personal opinion, I think the timing for all this doesn't have to do with rookie minicamp. I think it has to do with something behind the scenes that we don't know about, and they kind of got the heads up on it, and they said, okay, it's time to do it now. Let's not have this thing stagger on longer. Is my personal opinion, but Lord knows I could be wrong. I've been wrong so many times, but that's just how I view it. I don't think that the rookie minicamp had a lot to do with it, but it could have been, definitely.
Okay. And now with Uriah's question from earlier, the stadium. What do you make about the news today from the TMZ interview with Dan Snyder and Jason Wright out there in LA having a good time, that the team is looking to build a new state-of-the-art stadium by 2027 and potentially having that stadium be closer to or being in the city of DC itself? What are your thoughts on all of that?
So this is such a tricky situation, Eddie, because, there is this kind of common thought of who and what Dan Snyder is. Seeing that interview with him and seeing how personable he was, he didn't seem standoffish, because people have said before, Dan Snyder, when you talk to him, he won't even acknowledge you unless you say like sir or Mr. Snyder, or I forget what it was. But he's sitting there having a conversation with the guy. He doesn't seem like he's too big for the situation, like, oh, I don't have time for this. He's sitting there talking to him. And that, to me, spoke volumes. It was like, okay, so this is Dan. We've heard all of this about him being a monster, a huge ass to everyone that he works with and everything. Obviously, this is for the cameras. Maybe he's put on a show. But the fact is, you kind of could see Dan for who he was. And I've interviewed multiple former players, and they don't feel the same about Snyder as the fan base. And the one question I always ask them, like, why is that? And they all say, because he's misunderstood. He wants to win. He does it maybe the wrong way at times to his own fault, but he is misunderstood at what he represents. And so seeing that, it was awesome. I'm glad that they're doing their research in person. With Jason Wright was right next to him. They went to LA, looked at those new stadiums. Hopefully they stopped in Vegas and looked at the big hockey puck. And so we could see the new, some new state-of-the-art things. And they were going to Europe. I love that, because what's the best way to be able to pick pieces from everything, right? To be able to pick the best from all these other different places. That's how you could really make something memorable and the best thing ever, because I'm sure Snyder's sitting here saying this stadium has to last us probably 100 years. So this has to be legit. It has to be good. And like you said, state of the art. I loved seeing that. They're doing it all on foot. They're doing it together. I absolutely love it. And you can kind of see the relationship between Jason Wright and Dan Snyder. And Jason's hasn't been lying to us when he's consistently said him and Snyder talk all the time. They discuss what they're doing all the time. And I loved to see it, Riley. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, no, I love to see it as well. I hope the stadium's in DC. I really hope so. I mean, I never really got to experience the RFK days, so having that back in DC, obviously a lot of things have changed since then. One of them being the name, but I think it would be a really good experience. Traffic will be congested for sure, but no, I'm really excited. I love seeing that relationship as well between Jason Wright and Dan Snyder. And Dan Snyder, a lot of people forget this, but he's one of the few owners in professional sports that was actually a diehard fan of the team growing up, that he ultimately acquired later on in life. So hopefully for his sake, but more so for our sake as fans, we actually start winning more and our stadium becomes, for
all of us, for all of our
yeah. Hopefully maybe we, win a Super Bowl before we get to that stadium, but we'll see about that. I'm excited, man. I really am. And I wonder when they're going to start actually building the whole thing. Because I know 2027 was when they said they were pretty much going to be done with it, but it should be interesting to see how things pan out over the next couple of years.
It should probably take about 2 to 3 years. Buildings are going up very, very fast. Obviously, stadiums are different. But I know that when they were building Audi Field, they had pulled, because I work construction, they had pulled a bunch of electricians down there, and they were paying them double the pay just to go down there and work 12-hour shifts 6 days a week. So that's kind of how stadiums press. They say, yo, we have to get it. We have to get it. There is a strict time frame. So I would say probably about 2 to 3 years. And so they're probably going to announce it in 2023 that they're going to start digging and start excavating and all that in 2024. That's probably when they're going to break ground.
I see Uriah's comment here. They better have the biggest jumbotron in the NFL. I mean, yeah, we don't want to see the Cowboys just, pretty much having the
Right.
best stadium and sort of having to admit that under our breaths every single year. But yeah,
It's not even the best. It's like the best stadium, like for a corporation, because you could sell it, you could do stadium, you can do concerts, you could do
yep,
the whole 9 yards with it. But they don't have like a home field advantage. Everyone says it's like you're like in the middle of in the field when you're in there because there's no real
yeah,
sound because how big it is. So look, we can outdo them. Watch, we'll have a big jumbotron, we'll have a big stadium, but we'll actually have it being loud. I truly
yeah.
believe that.
No, that would be awesome. Yeah,
Cowboys
so
fan base is definitely not as emotional as we are. I'll say that.
I don't know. You think so? You think so? With all the we're going to the Super Bowl, it's our year every
Yeah.
single year.
But they're not as like passionate as we are. Like they're like the
Okay,
fake
that's
guys.
fair.
They're like they're Lakers fans. They're Lakers and Yankees fans. That they
Yeah.
are used to something and that's what they strive for. But they're not like passionate like we are. Like especially because like to be a Washington fan, to go through this
Yeah.
for 20 years to still defend them, you have to have some legit passion behind you, dude.
No, I totally understand that. This is also a good point that I don't think was talked about on Twitter. Outdoors, indoor stadium. I'm in the boat where I would love to have a roof on top, like a retractable roof that we could put over and off. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm right there with you. A retractable roof would make a lot of sense because you still have the grass, which grades out better for players and for the game and the play and everything. To have the grass, but also be able to close it, let's say in the wintertime or if it's storming, whatever have you, if you need to. And then it opens the door for you to have, the Olympics, concerts, and other stuff like that you can have with the retractable roof. Obviously, it's very, very, very expensive. There's other avenues you can go down, but I think it'd be worth their money to do that without a doubt. Yeah. So I would love it for it to be outside. I don't want it at all to be strictly indoors, kind of losing the whole DMV feel with everything. You know what I mean? So I would rather it be outside, but I would also like it to have a retractable roof.
Yeah, exactly. And the Olympics and the DMV would be a sight to behold. The nation's capital. That'd be crazy. But moving on a little bit, going to our draft picks and some of the things that we saw rookie minicamp. I don't know about you. I know rookie minicamp just talked about how it should be looked at as the end all be all for these rookie players, but Dyami Brown, receiver from UNC, I liked him a lot coming out of the draft and looked pretty good at rookie minicamp. What are your thoughts on him and to potentially see him being that outside receiver alongside Terry maybe by midway through the season?
He was probably one of our best value picks. One of the reasons why I feel that is because, with Terry is kind of like the do-it-all wide receiver. He can do the short stuff. He can take your screens. He can also go deep on the post, also bring in tough catches, jump the ball. He can do everything. With Curtis Samuel, who's more like close to line of scrimmage, pre-snap motion. He could be used as a running back, line up in the backfield, but he can also get outside, get in the middle of the field, get you his hard-earned passes to move the chains. But they lack that explosion. They lack that D-Jax kind of threat. And getting Dyami Brown immediately fixes that. Now, one issue of his game is that he only lined up on the left side of the field during his days in college. So he has to work on being on all sides of the field so they can kind of be able to use him, disguise him a little bit when he's out there. He's got a little bit of ways to go, but I absolutely loved his pick. He thought it was a slam dunk, and it's exactly what we need. It's the missing piece. He's going to be the best deep threat that we've had since D-Jax, without a doubt. The other guy that I really, really, really liked, Jarrett Patterson. I know that everyone wants to talk about the 8-touchdown game. Look, man, his offensive line is legit. They were pushing dudes out of the way, the size of airplane hangars. He was able to run through holes willy-nilly. That being said, the dude is consistently, whenever he's tackled, he's falling forward. I've said it. I put out a depth chart prediction for the start of the season, and I said Jarrett Patterson is going to be overtaking Peyton Barber for that short yardage back. He has
music to my ears.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. The one issue with Jarrett Patterson, though, to be that short yardage back, he does have to get better at his pass protection. Saw him get blown up a little bit, but the dude is small. He is powerful. He is a little bit shifty. I like the Sproles comp because Sproles wouldn't juke you out of your shoes. He would just run right by you, and that's kind of what Jarrett Patterson is. He does have the kind of quickness a little bit, but I would more put him as like he runs like Alfred Morris, if that makes sense, where it's like that kind of high body, you know, he kind of going through the motions, very patient. When he sees it, he goes. And I kind of see him like an Alfred Morris in that aspect. So I think he's going to come in and take Peyton Barber's job and be that short yardage back. I think he's going to be perfect for that place right there.
Do you think though that like his size might not be a negative there when it comes to like goal line plays or short yardage plays, especially because, you know, usually Adrian Peterson 2 years prior, and then obviously Peyton Barber last year sort of took over that role because they're kind of built for that. Makes sense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because that would make sense, right? Because you got big bodies right there in the middle. Do you have the weight to be able to push forward and to get the extra yards? You're 100% right. That comes down to your ability to be able to run the football. Because if you run like Marshawn Lynch, it doesn't matter who's back there. Nobody's going to be stopping you. So it is a concern. Without a doubt, you are 100% right about that. I just feel like the way that he runs that football, I think that he's going to, in the way our offensive line is going to be able to move the football, I think that they're not going to have an issue with that.
Okay, that's fair. Got a couple more questions here. Very short thoughts on the signing of Bobby McCain at safety, and how do you see the secondary playing out this upcoming season?
I loved the pickup from Bobby McCain. I've watched his tape the past couple days. I've watched it from like week 17 back. And so I made it to, I think, like week 11, week 12. I love the fit because he lines up predominantly as the deep center field safety in a cover 3, which is great. Yeah. And he always takes the top off. He very rarely will ever get bit up. You know, he's always on the deep. Yes, he'll get ran by maybe once or twice, but that happens in the NFL. These are pro athletes. People are going to run by you. But he's always smart. He's always at the top of the route. He can come up and make tackles in open field. He's very, very intelligent, and he also has instincts. There was one play in particular. He's playing center field deep safety. He sees an out route coming 10 to 15 yards on his right side. He's up at that guy by the time the ball gets there. Obviously, he still caught it, but from going from center field to get to that guy by the time the pass is thrown shows closing speed, it shows instincts, and it shows the ability that you know what's happening and you know what's going on. I love his fit because he's the opposite of Landon Collins. He's the opposite of Cam Curl, which are the in-the-box safeties. You kind of worry about their range, not with Bobby McCain. Obviously, he does have some tackling issues, but from what I saw, go watch the Vikings game. There's multiple times Stephon Diggs is in open field. Bobby McCain comes up and, you know, squares him up, getting ready to go, and Stephon Diggs falls to the ground. Obviously, they made the playoffs. They weren't really caring about doing all that much, but the fact is, he can tackle. He comes up and he can make the open field tackles. It happens, but I love the pickup because it's the missing piece of the puzzle for that secondary. Now, Benjamin St-Juste, the 6'3" corner they drafted in the 3rd round, I think that he is a dark horse starter for that right cornerback position because William Jackson came in. Everyone was like, what is he doing? He's a press man corner. What are we doing? Not that many people remember that Jack Del Rio loves to run the cover 0 blitz. Blitzing, you know, 8 guys having 4 stay back. That makes a lot of sense in man-to-man coverage because then you can have William Jackson on the outside, Benjamin St-Juste, who is a press man corner as well. They kind of really are the same person. And then you could slide in Kendall Fuller at the slot cornerback where he was ranked as probably the best slot cornerback. What was like 2017, 2018, whatever the hell that was in the NFL. So get him back to that position. He could really excel well. I love the secondary right now. I think this coaching staff has done a good job this offseason of turning their weaknesses into strengths. And my goodness, have they made the secondary even better? And I didn't think that was possible as much as they did.
It's going to be interesting to see how the whole Cam Curl and Collins situation, though, plays out. A strong safety. We got confirmation from Jack Del Rio that Landon Collins will be the strong safety for us this year. But I feel like he'll just be a strong safety by name only. And we'll definitely play down more into the box a little bit. And that's why they brought in Bobby McCain, like you said, right, to be that sort of like cover safety. And Cam Curl can do some good things as well at the spot. But excited to see what the secondary has in store this season. And hopefully that pickup of William Jackson III, hopefully he can just absolutely ball out behind that defensive line. But as promised, just a couple more questions. Quick thoughts on, this is the last question. The Wizards, think they're going to win tonight against the Indiana Pacers?
I do. I really do. Russell Westbrook last time, he had like 20 assists on them. Their defense was putrid, but obviously they've gotten a little bit better recently. I love Russell Westbrook. Manny Chaguba, the host of the Back Row Redskins podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked to him last year when the trade went down. It just happened when sending John Wall for Russell Westbrook. And I said, I actually kind of like it because Russell Westbrook has that dog mentality. Like Russell Westbrook doesn't really care about what he's doing afterwards, doesn't care about what, like he only cares about playing basketball and winning. He's kind of has that dog mentality where unfortunately for John Wall is kind of that emotional emo kind of guy, And so that's why I loved it. And you're seeing the product of that with Russell Westbrook. The guy is a dog. He is a winner, and that's all shoot, right? And that's Russell Westbrook. That being said, that's the reason why I think they're going to win. I don't think Russell Westbrook is going to let them not make the playoffs. I think he came here to prove a point, seeing everyone run their mouth after they lost the other night. They had one bad game in like a month, and everyone starts talking about how bad they are again. It's ridiculous. Russell Westbrook's going to come back pissed off. Bradley Beal's going to look a bit better, and hopefully we can hit some three-pointers this game. My goodness.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Admittedly, Russ didn't have the greatest of games on Tuesday, but I think the Wizards are gonna pull out the W tonight. Like you said, Russell Westbrook, he's not gonna allow this Wizards team to not make the playoffs. I mean, everything he's been through in the offseason to make it to this point, I just don't think that Bradley Beal. So I know he's playing through an injury, but I think that backcourt there is enough to take the Wizards over the top against the Pacers. Although the Pacers, they're not that bad, right? They still have a really good chance of winning this game. So the Wizards should definitely not take the Pacers lightly as they've done with previous opponents. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, in terms of playoff chances, we'll see when it comes to the Wizards. Even after they win, hopefully tonight. I don't know, but that's another situation, right? We got to get past.
Somebody needs to hit Bertans in the ass, man. Let's get some production in tonight.
$80 million. Kind of looking like a bust right now, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah. It's the way it's looking. For
sure. And then last question, as promised, as I like to ask every single guest that I have on the Washington Football Weekly live streams, I want to ask you, how confident do you feel about the future of this Washington Football franchise? Do you think Ron Rivera is really moving us to be in legit title contention relatively soon?
Without a doubt. Yeah. I was one of the guys that did not want to tank this past season. I said, go and get the playoffs. I don't care if it's a one and out. In the first year of you coming in as a head coach, if you can make the playoffs with a team that was just 3-13 the previous year, that means you're doing something and you're headed in the right direction. I absolutely love everything that they have done here. It sucks with kind of the moves that they have made, but look, this sucks. This whole situation sucks, and this happens when a rebuild happens. But the product is going to get better. You have to trust the process. And what we've seen thus far from Ron Rivera in a COVID year, undergoing cancer, going through a name change, and with all the sexual assault allegations, he was still able to keep this team focused on the prize, and they were able to go win football games with 4 different quarterbacks. My confidence could not be higher with this football team, especially in the future. I've said it many times. I think this season is a bust if they don't make the playoffs. It should be playoffs or bust, in my personal opinion. Their goal has to be to make the playoffs to win the division. That's it. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a huge bust, and they took a giant step back. Because from now on, you're saying our expectation is playoffs. We just went there in the first year. We damn well better get back there the second and third year. And that's what I expect to happen, especially with everything that they've done. And I've talked about it just 5 minutes ago, turning our weaknesses into strengths. I wholeheartedly believe that the future of this Washington football team is very, very bright. And we're going to see them possibly playing in February in the next 3 years.
Yeah, man. I'm actually have had it in the back of my head, potentially making a video on that. But product of having a better team is getting rid of good players, right? So I think we're seeing that over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months, and I think I'm excited. Man, for sure. But I appreciate you, Kyle, the Podfather from the Burgundy Zone, for joining the Washington Football Weekly live stream. I know I cut into a little bit of your prep time, and I'm sorry for that, but appreciate you joining us this evening and everybody in the chat. And hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and make sure to look out for the Burgundy Zone new episode that's coming out. And I made sure to link his YouTube. There are 3 guys, his YouTube video and channel in the description. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching the DMB Sports Zone channel. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe as soon as possible. Also, make sure to go and follow our Instagram page, all lowercase DMB Sports Zone, and our Twitter page at DMB Sports Zone, where we try to post fire content on there as much as possible. So that being said, thank you guys so much. And Gregory, I see your comment here. You never know. Fitzpatrick, I think both of us maybe see a career year out of him this year with that Washington football team.
I'm not sure about career year, but I will say for the Washington team, they're in a much better position with Ryan Fitzpatrick there because he does exactly what they didn't have at all last year. And that was somebody who would be willing to throw the ball downfield. Alex Smith threw the ball downfield against Pittsburgh. What happened? We won. Did the same. And then what's with Taylor Heineke? What did we do against Tampa? Oh, we were throwing the ball downfield. Oh, my goodness. We were actually productive in scoring points. That is adding De'Ami Brown and Ryan Fitzpatrick was the two most important guys that they brought in here. Because now all of a sudden, now the defense has to respect the deep ball. Last year, they knew that they weren't throwing the ball deep. They would stack 8 in the box and say, all right, run it and beat us. We couldn't. So now we have the deep threat. We have De'Ami Brown. We have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who will throw the ball deep. He doesn't care if there's 3 guys on you. He'll still do it. I love it because it fits the scheme. They really did bring strength to their weaknesses. I truly believe that.
Yep. You could see a 10-win season out of a 16 start. Ryan Fitzpatrick, much like the Jets had a couple years back with him. So, yeah, thank you guys. And I'll stay on for until about 5 or 6:30 your time, and I'll let Kyle go. But thank you so much, man, for joining.
Oh, hey, Natty, I can't thank you enough for having me on, my dude. I appreciate it. It's very nice of you to be able to do that. Thank you for giving me the time to talk to Washington football. I'd love to have you on our pod in the near future. Appreciate you having me on. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
For sure. Appreciate that. Have a good night.
All right, guys. Washington football. Woo!
All right, guys. So for the next 20-ish minutes, maybe less, maybe a little bit more, I'll be talking about this Washington football team, answering all your questions, and I'll first be answering Gregory's question that I put up here. The quarterback situation, I think, like I said earlier, right before Kyle jumped off, I think this year is going to be a career year for Ryan Fitzpatrick, if not close to that. I think we could see a similar 10-win season like he had with the Jets only a couple years back. He has a top 5 QBR over the last couple of years, so he's arguably playing his best football in his entire career over the last couple of years, even as he ages past age 35. Now he's at, I think, 38, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we can see some really good things out of Ryan Fitzpatrick. And the team is really building an offense catered to sort of his strengths, right? Throwing the ball down the field. Obviously, he is a gunslinger, and with that, does throw some picks, and probably going to see that a lot. Probably for the first time, we're going to see that more often like we did with Kirk Cousins, which might be an issue. But with Ryan Fitzpatrick, though, he actually can throw the ball into tight windows, which we haven't seen in a long, long time here in D.C. So I'm excited to see that here in D.C. Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, I'm super high on him. Much like if you guys have been with this channel for over the course of the last few months, you know how high I was on Antonio Gibson after he was drafted. I thought he could be a Alvin Kamara type running back here in DC, and I see big things out of De'Ami Brown as well. I think he can be a very good player here in DC as running, the speed, 4.4 speed, deep threat ability, has the hands. Obviously, Ron Rivera always mentions this, but he did have some drops in college, which you cannot really accept on the next level, but hopefully he gets that together here in DC, and he seems just like a very good kid overall. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he has here in DC, and I think he's potentially going to be that boundary receiver alongside Terry by maybe week 7 or week 8 this season, and Curtis Samuel will move to the slot. But starting week 1, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. In the slot will probably be Adam Humphries. Steven Sims, I think his days are numbered here in DC, and rightfully so. He had a lot of drops last year, although he started to play better once the quarterback play was better. So who knows with that situation. Cam Sims, I am not as big of a fan as I know a lot of people out there are, because of the fact that, yes, he was amazing in that Steelers game and arguably helped us win that game with that amazing catch towards the end. But a lot of people forget after that game, this man was dropping everything, if we're going to be honest. So hopefully he gets that together this year and sort of has that beginning of 2020 type vibes for the 2021 season and gives us some very good production if he even stays on the team. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Kelvin Harmon has as well. Kelvin Harmon, a lot of people forgetting that 2019 season was actually really good, for at least when it comes to the rest of the Washington Redskins at the time receiving core, and has very good hands. We saw him make some tough catches when Dwayne Haskins was overthrowing the ball, as he typically does, right? That guy Haskins. But yeah, Kelvin Harmon hopefully comes back for that injury, though. I am worried, though, that injury is going to be like what we've seen in the past with other players, where we think they're going to be ready by week 1, by the early part of the season, but it's just the injury that lingers throughout the season, and ultimately they go on the IR. I hope that doesn't happen with Kelvin Harmon. I really don't, because I think he has some good potential, but we shall see there. I like the receiving core overall. The offensive line, I am a little less confident in it now that Morgan Moses has been released. But at the same time, like I said on the on the show with the pod father, Kyle from the Burgundy Zone, I think they love what they have seen already out of Samuel Cosby. I mean, sure, there might be some off-the-field stuff that we don't know about when it comes to Morgan Moses that would probably come out in the future. But at the same time, you've got to be confident in Cosby's ability to be the starter sooner rather than later in order for you to actually outright release Morgan Moses, right? Ultimately, I wanted the Washington football team to trade Morgan Moses, take advantage of his career year. He's 30 years old. He just turned 30 years old, making $7.7 million, not more this season, which isn't too much for a starting right tackle. But at the same time, if you're going to get rid of him, now is probably the best time. But ultimately, they couldn't find any partners, right? It takes two to dance, really, when it comes to the NFL trades. And we've seen that over the course of the last year plus, right, with Trent Williams as well, who only got a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick back in terms of compensation, which is, to me, it still angers me, man, because I knew Trent Williams was arguably the best left tackle in the league, even after a year off. But that's a whole different situation. The Washington football team has moved on. Ron Rivera has moved on. And, yeah, Charles Leno is probably going to be that left tackle for us come week 1 with Cosby on the right side, in my opinion. And then you got Eric Flowers or Wes Schweitzer, who might be competing for left guard, or maybe even a Sadiq Charles, who could find his way in that competition and actually be healthy for the first time in a while. So center, obviously, Chase Roullier just got that extension very early in the offseason. I think it was like a couple of days after the regular season actually ended. So it tells you all you need to know about teams up for Chase Roullier at this point. And Sheriff at right guard this year. But yeah, guys, I really think this is going to be his last year in DC. And I hate to say that because he is an all-pro right guard. I've been a huge fan of Brandon Sheriff since he's been drafted. He's been a steady presence here in DC. Obviously, he's been injured a lot. But at the same time, when he's actually playing for this Washington football team, at least our run game is so much better than when he's not playing. We've seen that for so many games. I mean, Antonio Gibson has had his best games, arguably, over the last year with Brandon Sheriff at that right guard spot. And even running backs in the past, like Adrian Peterson, right, has had his best games with Brandon Sheriff on that offensive line. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this offensive line pans out. I think it's going to be another solid one, maybe in the 12 to 15 range when it comes to top offensive lines in the league, much like they were last year, which a lot of people don't recognize, but they were, and helping protect Ryan Fitzpatrick. But I think it's all going to come down to those weapons on offense. You got a Terry McLaurin, you got a De'Ami Brown, you got an Adam Humphries. You also brought in Antonio Gibson, who I think is going to catch a lot more passes out of the backfield this year. And I think, guys, if you play fantasy football, make sure to draft him early because I think he's going to be an absolute stud this year if he can stay healthy, right? Which towards the tail end of last season, he wasn't, right? When a lot of people were playing in the fantasy playoffs and stuff. But that was a turf toe injury. I think he's fully recovered. If not, will be fully recovered by the start of training camp. So excited to see what he has, and I think he's going to have an absolute breakout year this year if he stays healthy. J.D. McKissick is another guy who's super unheralded. He had over 500 receiving yards last year, and a lot of people don't really realize that. I mean, Logan Thomas, who's a guy that we all hail at this point, who we all appreciate after that great year, had about 670 receiving yards. So J.D. McKissick was right there. He was a running back. He was running between the tackles and arguably looked like our best running back, at least towards the beginning of the season, right? When Antonio Gibson was starting to get some things together with this team. But I love J.D. McKissick. This guy plays hard and always falls forward, which I know Kyle talked about earlier in our show. And you haven't seen Kyle and his thoughts on the Washington football team, make sure to just press that rewind button on this YouTube video and see, because he provides some great insight. Strongly recommend watching it. And yeah, so offense should look good. I do worry about that tight end depth. I mean, Logan Thomas, right, starting tight end, but we did get John Bates in the 4th round, but he's probably more of like a blocking tight end at this point. Maybe he can turn out to be something when it comes to receiving the ball. He did show some soft hands, very good soft hands in college. So hopefully that can translate over. And we do have a very good tight ends coach here in DC that ultimately helped. Logan Thomas had an amazing year last year and a breakout year. So hopefully he could work his thing with our current tight end group. We also have a Coates, right? Samus Coates, who, he has all the athletic talent in the world that you want to see out of the tight end position, but I'm not going to be one of those people who are super hyped about his potential right now. He did look sort of stiff when it came to running his routes in rookie minicamp, but again, he might progress as the months go along and as the offseason goes along, and ultimately get to a point where you can have him actually being a backup tight end to Logan Thomas by the time week 1 rolls around. But we shall see, man. We shall see. I'm not super high on Samus at this point, but we'll see. I do think that the team should still add a tight end potentially there. And I know we didn't talk about this earlier, Kyle and I, but Julio Jones, there's talk that the Atlanta Falcons are basically looking at trading him. I just don't think he'd be a good fit here in DC after the moves that we made in the offseason. Although Julio Jones, a healthy Julio Jones here in DC would be absolutely amazing. And imagine pairing him with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, who I, like I said earlier, am super high on. They'll be absolutely stacked receiving core, even with Julio Jones being, 31 years old, 32 years old at this point. He still has a lot left in the tank, in my opinion. The problem with Julio over the last couple years especially has been injuries. He's always been injured. A lot of fantasy football owners know that. He's always been injured, and I don't know, man. That contract is also pretty hefty, and we just signed pretty good amount of money to Curtis Samuel. We're going to definitely sign Terry McLaurin to a long-term contract in short order. So that's probably going to be upwards of 17, 18, 19 million. The way the salary cap is rising, maybe even more than that. It's going to be absolutely crazy. But Terry definitely deserves it. And, yeah, so it should be interesting. I just don't think Washington's going to make a move for Julio Jones. Quarterback, on the other hand, I mean, there's really releasing a lot of guys right now. Morgan Moses, I mean, if there isn't any off-the-field stuff associated with him at this point, was there really a point in releasing him? And obviously, if Samuel Cosme looks like to be a bona fide starter, I mean, Morgan Moses there at least a couple weeks early in the season would be great, but they did release him. A lot of speculation that Washington's trying to clear salary cap space, potentially get a quarterback that is kind of maybe sort of on the market right now, and a Deshaun Watson, who hopefully after all the off-the-field chaos resolves, hopefully, he might be on the trade market, and an Aaron Rodgers as well, who isn't too happy right there up there in Green Bay. So hopefully Washington could get one of those guys. I just don't see it happening though. Ron Rivera has repeatedly said that he wants to build a absolutely juggernaut around his quarterback, and ultimately, once we get that quarterback, we will be a Super Bowl contender. So, I just don't see them pulling the trigger when it comes to those moves, unfortunately. But and Ron, we trust, right? And shifting over to the defense, I like the defense. I really do. I mean, they were a top 3 defense last year, although, as I repeatedly said throughout the course of the history of this live stream, this Washington football team weekly live stream, I thought this defense, once they went up against a solid offense, they wouldn't do too well. And I mean, we saw times when that happened last year. I mean, I know it was early in the season, but we saw the Ravens run all over the field when it came to playing against this Washington defense. And even Tampa Bay did some good things against this Washington defense as well. But, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what they got. Bobby McCain, early on when there was rumors about Washington having him in for a visit, I wasn't too sold on him. But as I watched some more film on Bobby McCain, he does seem like a very good single high safety who potentially behind that defensive line, behind a linebacker core that has improved, just solely off the addition of Jamin Davis and maybe emergence out of Cole Holcomb, maybe having a breakout year this year if he stays healthy. I think he's going to have a solid year. Also got Landon Collins back, but I think, again, it'll be a strong safety by name, playing more so in the box, and Cam Curl is just going to continue to ascend and be one of the better safeties in this league. I think he's going to get there, maybe 2-3 years down the line. I see the comment here from DieHard Fan Walker. I want an indoor stadium with a retractable roof. Exactly. You hit the nail on its head, DieHard Fan Walker. That's exactly what Kyle and I said, the Podfather said earlier on in the stream. We both said we wanted an indoor stadium with a retractable roof because you sort of get the best of both worlds, right? If it rains, if there's a downpour or there's a thunderstorm or something, obviously the league will probably cancel if there's a thunderstorm. But if there's a huge downpour, you can always close your roof and ultimately play games, and it's still going to be a great environment. And also, you want to get that DMV feel, right? You want to get that DMV skyline sort of like right at the stadium. So having a open roof might be helpful a couple times throughout the course of the season, if not most of the season, right? So I think you get the best of both worlds when you have a retractable roof, and I'd be all for that. I'm really excited to see how this new stadium looks like by the time 2027 comes around. Hopefully it's in DC, guys. I really want it to be in DC. Like I said earlier, didn't get any experience when it came to the RFK days that a lot of older fans love to talk about, with DC rocking over this Washington Redskins team at the time, and I watched the football team. So getting at least a little bit of that here in DC, right? Especially if this team starts winning a lot. Getting that winning in a new stadium would be absolutely insane. A new stadium in DC, I might add, would be absolutely insane, especially for this young fan like me who never really got that DC vibe when it came to the Washington Redskins, but now Washington football team. So I'll be all for that. Hawk, I see you, bro. Thanks for joining. We just had a very good talk with Kyle, the Podfather from the Burgundy Zone. So if you're really looking into that or really want to see that, make sure to just press the rewind button. And it was super enjoyable. He provided some great insight, especially on Bobby McCain, the new safety that Washington just signed, as well as the Morgan Moses and Ron Christian moves that we just had earlier today. So I would definitely look into that. What's the best stadium in the NFL, in my opinion? I mean, I said the Cowboys Stadium earlier. I hate to say it, right? The Cow Turds, but no, they have a very good stadium. Although, like Kyle said earlier, it's very much corporate, right? Like, you don't really get that home field advantage at the Cowboys Stadium. They usually, all the announcers at the stadiums and then the analysts love to say that every single year. It's really not a home game entirely when it comes to Dallas Cowboys. But I like their stadium. I like the Las Vegas Stadium a lot as well. I mean, that's truly state of the art. Europe, which I know Jason Wright said that Washington was looking into to see some new stadium designs. It has a lot of great stadiums with all their soccer or real football stadiums out there in Europe and in England especially. So hopefully we could bring those designs together and build a state-of-the-art retractable roof stadium in DC, in the nation's capital, that will not only host Washington football team games, but will also host, like Kyle said earlier, the Olympics here in DC. Imagine the Olympics in the nation's capital with games played across the region, right? We have so many stadiums. I mean, the DC skyline, all the monuments as the backdrop. I mean, we saw a little bit of that with the MLB All-Star game, right? A couple years back. Bryce Harper having a great All-Star performance in the specifically in the home run derby. But imagine a full-on Olympics here in DC. Man, this city would be buzzing. But even then, even the Olympics, how great of a tournament that is, this city won't be as buzzing as it is if Washington reaches the promised land and wins another Super Bowl. Man, oh my, that would be a sight to behold here in DC, man. Gives me goosebumps just thinking about it, and I know it probably does to you guys as well, especially the younger who haven't seen any of the 3 Super Bowls that this team has won. Gregory, Sorry for not saying this earlier, but I appreciate you for joining, Gregory. And thoughts on Dan Snyder? Mentioned this earlier in the stream with Kyle, but I mean, he sort of looked more personable than he's ever looked, if we're going to be honest, right? In that TMZ interview, didn't seem like he was too big for the moment, and really gave us the best vibes, in my opinion, the best vibes he's ever given in a sort of press conference / interview. And yeah, man, I know a lot of people know this. Dan Snyder, he was a diehard fan of the Washington Redskins and now Washington football team, and for all that the pain that he's brought this Washington franchise over the last 20 plus years, all the disdain that a lot of us fans, including myself, have for him, he just looks, a little bit less full of himself in the interview. And I love seeing that relationship with Jason Wright. It looks like they're pretty much on the same page when it comes to everything. So I think, he's going to stay out of the way. I think it's Ron Rivera's team, Ron Rivera's organization, if we're going to be honest. And I think Dan Snyder's going to stay out of the way. And yeah, man. Obviously, he's still one of the worst owners in sports. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. He still is. Obviously, not as bad as Dolan up there in New York with the Knicks, but yeah, we shall see. We shall see if he continues to sort of stay on the low, right, and stay out of business when it comes to the Washington football team, or at least when it comes to team operations, and just focus on the business side. We'll see. We'll see if he can do that. Hope he can. But DIEHARD Fan Walker is going to take forever for a new stadium. I mean, Kyle said he works in construction, and he said with the current timeline that the team has, 2027, having that stadium pretty much being up and running, he said it could pretty much with how construction works nowadays, and with construction workers, with teams asking construction workers to work 12-hour days and ultimately paying them twice as much money. He said that stadiums, even NFL stadiums, can be built within 2 or 3 years. So maybe construction can start being built in 2023, 2024. And hopefully we'll have that stadium up and running by 2027. And with it being the best stadium in the United States, at least in professional football, which makes sense, right? When you're in the nation's capital, the best city in the U.S., in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't take too. I want to trade for Deshaun Watson, Gregory Lightbody. If I can get my, I can get the comment up here, unfortunately. But I agree, Deshaun Watson here in DC. Well, I agree with the caveat that all the off-the-field stuff is settled, right? It's been a long offseason for Deshaun Watson. I remember in January, February, everybody wanted him here in DC, but obviously with all the sexual harassment allegations and the massage, I mean, how many massage hopefully I'm still on, guys. Sorry about that. But he's likely, a lot of fans don't recognize this or just forget. He's probably going to get suspended for at least a couple of games this season with all the turmoil that has surrounded him this offseason, unless he's fully cleared. But I would still love to have him in DC if he's cleared. I mean, he's, like I said, early in the offseason, he's a top five, not 10, not 15, top 5 quarterback in this league, in my opinion. And he's only ascended. He's only 25, 26 years old. He's super young, too. And I think the Washington football team would be more likely to give up assets to go after him than a guy like Aaron Rodgers, although I've always been a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. Not as much of a fan as I was a Peyton Manning growing up. That was my guy, like, bar none. I was the biggest fan. My dad was as well. But Aaron Rodgers here in DC, I think, if we're trying to win Super Bowls, right, in the near future, Aaron Rodgers here in DC, imagine him with this defense, with this receiving core, with this coach who can actually coach, right? I mean, Matt LaFleur is a great coach too, but Ron Rivera, coaching staff, the entire coaching staff, not just Ron Rivera at the helm. I mean, I would be ecstatic if we got any of those two guys, and I think we would be immediate Super Bowl contenders. But I don't know, man. Ron Rivera seems pretty comfortable, at least this season, going into the season with Ryan Fitzpatrick as the week 1 starter. We shall see, though, if it's just all talk and he ultimately makes that big move. They are clearing salary cap space, as we talked about extensively earlier. So should be interesting to see what Washington has in store, what Ron Rivera has in store as captain of this ship here in DC. But I want to give one big thanks to everybody in the chat: Uriah, Holiday, Gregory Lightbody, Fan Walker, Hawk, I know the chat wasn't as active tonight, but probably because this was a pretty early stream compared to other streams. But I wanted to make sure Kyle was on here, gave his great insight before his podcast drops in the near future. I know he's gonna be recording it right after this one, actually right now. And also wanting to give you guys a stream before the Wizards game tonight, which I know most of us are going to be watching to see if the Wizards can actually make the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal in the backcourt, Rui Hachimura, who I believe needs to step up, Davis Bertans, $80 million bust at this point, and hopefully Gaffer, get some more minutes. And Scott Brooks, please. No matter, even if this team makes the playoffs, I don't understand. Like, if he stays as the head coach next year, I just think Washington is just making the wrong choice, right? We gotta seek out better when it comes to our coaching here in DC across all sports leagues. Watch football team found its right coach in Ron Rivera, Nationals. I mean, Davey Martinez. I know obviously he's a World Series champion coach now or manager, but I don't know. A lot of fans are not happy about him, but the Wizards especially, we need to get that coach right. And Scott Brooks, in my opinion, is just not the answer, no matter, even if we win tonight, but especially if we lose. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching this latest installment of the Washington Football Team weekly live stream. I see here DIEHARD Fan Walker, who's the Wizards owner. Ted Leonsis is actually, can you believe this? I said this on Twitter actually a couple months ago when the Wizards were just so bad, Capitals were so good. Can you imagine? Ted Leonsis is actually the owner of the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards. One of the best teams in all of hockey, and at that time, one of the worst teams in all of basketball, and really one of the worst teams in all of basketball over the last couple of years, right? One of the most dysfunctional basketball teams in the NBA over the last 20 years, if we're going to be honest. It's just crazy to me to see the contrast between those two organizations and to see us win Stanley Cup in the NHL with the Capitals and to really not see us win an NBA Finals for the Wizards in so long and probably for I don't know, for some years to come. But, yeah, Ted Leonsis is the owner. He needs to fire Scott Brooks. I mean, it's time. It's time, DIEHARD fan. And he should have been fired last year. You're right. It's about time. Much like it was about time for John Christian to be released by the Washington Football Team, it's about time for Scott Brooks to be fired. And I love to see how he builds, or at least has very solid offenses no matter where he goes. But sort of like a Mike D'Antoni, his defenses are always putrid. And here in DC, it's been much of the same. So hopefully we get a defensive-minded coach. And we've seen across the league, especially like with the Lakers, for example. Obviously, you have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, who've been absolutely skillful offensive players of the last couple of years, really over their entire careers. But when you got a defensive-minded coach, no matter where you're at, even a Tom Thibodeau up there in New York with the Knicks, you start to win games. And you're not only winning games, but you're also legit NBA title contenders. And I think, it should be interesting to see if the Wizards can hire someone like that in the offseason. But hopefully the Wizards win tonight. And like I said, thank you guys so much for watching the stream. If you really want to see the live stream between me and the podfather, Kyle, from the Burgundy Zone, arguably the best podcast in the Washington Football Team community, go make sure to check that out. It was a great interview / talk with him. And, I had a great one. Hopefully I'll have some more videos for you guys in the near future. I mean, school is just kicking my butt right now. But, hopefully, again, the Wizards win. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the DMV Sports channel. We try to post fire content on here as much as possible. Also, go follow our Instagram page, all lowercase DMV Sports Zone, where, guys, we literally post a lot on there. So if you think, I'm not making enough videos on here, go check out the Instagram page. We always post about all the DMV Sports teams. And I see you, Manny. We just talked about you, Colin, actually, earlier in the stream, and the great insight that you bring to the Washington Football Team community as well. So I appreciate you joining at the tail end. But if you really want to see the interview / talk that I had with Kyle, the podfather from the Burgundy Zone, please make sure to rewind a little bit and see. It was a very good interview / talk with him, and hope you get to watch it. Hope you're doing well, bro, and appreciate your content as always. As one of the greatest podcasters in the Washington Football Team community, and a super big Lakers fan as well. I see you out there posting about the Lakers. So that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and I appreciate that, Manny. And hope you have a great night, and see you on the next one. Peace.